It's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 2 on 90.3 WPLN News.
This is 90.3 WPLN,
Nashville Public Radio,
and 91.7 WHRS Cookeville,
Nashville's home for Morning Edition and NPR News.
WPLN.org is where you can find more from WPLN News, including the Nash Villager, your human-powered newsletter and podcast, exploring Nashville news and history. Subscribe to both at WPLN.org.
From Nashville Public Radio, I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. Have you seen actor Bradley Cooper's new PBS documentary about caregiving in America? It probably hits home, because most of us will spend part of our lives playing the role he played for his father. But unpaid caregiving spans much more than returning the favor to the parent that raised you. And it's those non-traditional scenarios we're highlighting today. Grandparents raising kids, a 20-something looking after a grandparent, or a friend supporting another friend who can no longer care for themselves. There are resources in Middle Tennessee that can ease the burden. After the news, this is Nashville.
Sharing news and stories from the voices of Middle Tennessee. That's This is Nashville. Our show is made possible by Music City Prep Clinic. This is Nashville is in service to you. So if you have an idea for the show or feedback you'd like us to hear, leave us a voice message at 615-751-2500.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. This hour, ER staff are trying to save the lives of children who are among 17 people injured at a Minneapolis Catholic school today. Dr. Tom White is with Hennepin Healthcare.
We received a total of 11 patients from this incident. 2 of them were adult patients, 9 pediatric patients. 4 of them required the operating room. And up to this point in time, there have been no fatalities related to any of those patients that were brought to our organization.
However, authorities say at least 2 children have died. They say a gunman fired through church windows as students and teachers of Annunciation Catholic School gathered this morning for Mass. Authorities say he then turned the gun on himself. Mayor Jacob Fry later spoke to reporters of the horror inflicted on children in their first week of school.
These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance.
The White House confirms President Trump has spoken with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Walz is among the top Democrats in the U.S. to press the administration to back stronger gun control measures. Palestinians are already beginning to flee Israeli bombardment on the northern outskirts of Gaza City, and IDF is warning residents a mass evacuation is inevitable. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports Israel says it is planning to take control of the city and order hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to move to southern Gaza.
The Israeli military says its ground troops' combat enables the expansion of the offensive deeper inside the city. Israel has not issued a formal mass evacuation order yet, but some Palestinians are beginning to escape the area, as NPR's Anas Baba reports.
The father with his 2 children in the middle of the street. He's sitting above all of his luggage, his tent, some food, and that's it.
Ibrahim Abu Hmedan described, quote, crazy, barbarian, indiscriminate bombardment. Dead bodies and the injured are on the streets, he says. We call on international bodies to provide us with protection. We are civilians. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv, with Anas Baba in Gaza City.
The Trump administration's federal oversight in Washington, D.C. now extends to Union Station. Management of the major transportation hub within walking distance of the U.S. Capitol typically is covered by Amtrak. However, according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy today, not anymore. He says Union Station's fallen into disrepair. From Washington, this is NPR News. U.S. tariffs against India amounting to as much as 50% are now in effect. Earlier this month, President Trump signed an executive order to impose more steep levies on India for buying Russian oil at a time when Moscow ignored Washington's demands to halt its fighting in Ukraine. Weeks later, Trump held a summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in a bid to persuade him to agree to end the war. A pill version of a new obesity weight loss drug has cleared a clinical hurdle that paves the way for drug maker Eli Lilly to apply to bring it to market. NPR's Yuki Noguchi reports the results showed notable weight loss among those who were able to tolerate its side effects.
The experimental drug is called orforglipron, and it could be the first pill form of GLP-1 medications to be approved for weight loss. In trials, the highest dose of the drug showed about a 10% reduction in body weight over about 16 months. Pills are cheaper to make, and patients prefer them over injections. However, Eli Lilly's trials also show at the highest dose, over a tenth of participants quit the study citing side effects like nausea, vomiting, and other gastrointestinal problems. The company can now seek regulatory approval to sell the drug worldwide. Yuki Noguchi, NPR News.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. The Dow is up more than 100 points. The S&P has gained 11, and the Nasdaq has climbed 26 points. I'm Lakshmi Singh, NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners. And Xander Insurance, an independent agency working for their clients by shopping, comparing, and being there every day to help keep business and personal insurance hassle-free. Learn more at Xander.com.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. It's an hour devoted to a life experience we will all have one way or another. First Lady Rosalynn Carter put it this way: there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. And it's not nearly just about caring for an aging parent. In fact, it's those more complex caregiving situations that can get the least attention. But we're going to highlight the work that happens often out of sight. Grandparents raising children or caring for anyone with special needs, child or adult. We'll talk about resources for caregivers in Middle Tennessee, and we have some experts who'll help us take your calls later in the hour, so listen up, stick around. What sparked this conversation is a new PBS documentary that grew from the experience of actor Bradley Cooper. We'll start with a clip.
Like most people, I didn't even think about caregiving until my father was diagnosed with cancer. My dad was somebody who I idolized. I used to dress up like him when I was a kid in kindergarten and get made fun of because I wanted to wear like a suit and a tie. And then to go from that to giving him a bath is quite a traumatic thing.
Everyone has a care story. Caring for our families is the most important and invisible work that we will ever do.
Do you think we look alike? Here you go.
Doesn't matter who you are, where you live, what you do, where you come from, you need care.
How you feeling this morning? You good?
And we have this invisible army who are essentially holding us all up as families and therefore holding the entire economy up.
Let me pat dry your face.
People are doing everything they can and more, and it's simply not sufficient because we need to have a recognition that care is a public good.
So my dad is actually a medically retired Navy SEAL, and now he's like helping me just get stronger.
I'm here caring for 2 sick people, which is definitely harder than anything I've ever done in my life.
There's just this simmering crisis. Everyone is burning out, whether it's the care worker or the family member. Everyone is under extreme duress.
I have reintroduced a credit for caring bill. It is for those that are caring for their loved ones.
We're trapped in a caregiving crisis, within an economic crisis, within a healthcare crisis.
Now, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to support all of our families and our caregivers too.
It really is up to us. All of us can help raise the banner for caregivers. That's why I'm excited to partner with WIDA and produce this documentary. Together, with your help, we can make a difference.
It's a caregiving documentary on PBS Now. Actor Bradley Cooper, the executive director, if you recognize that voice. With us now is his right-hand man on the project, Chris Durrance, director and senior producer. Welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thanks so much, Blake. Pleased to be with you.
And LaTanya Turner joins us for this segment in the studio. She produced this episode. She also produces our Next Age episodes and hosted a screening and panel discussion on the caregiving documentary last week. Plus, she has her own caregiving experience. Thank you for lending your expertise, LaTanya.
You're more than welcome. Glad to be here.
And, looking at LaTanya, I forget, she used to be on TV. She's like such a natural here. We are streamed. We got bright lights on us because we stream this on YouTube now. If you'd like to join the conversation visually, it's also a great way to chime in on the conversation with a comment there at the Nashville Public Radio YouTube page. It's youtube.com/@WPLN. And we'll also be taking calls later in the hour, so stay tuned. So, Chris, what drew you personally to this topic? I mean, you said yes to directing this film. Why?
For me, it's a deeply personal story, but it grew, and like you said, it grew out of Bradley's own experience. I mean, we have to be honest here. It would not be getting the attention. It wouldn't be getting the all these conversations that we're having across the country were it not for his courage in stepping forward and sharing his own story. But for me, and for many on the production, once one person started talking about caregiving, we all raised our hands and we looked at our own situations. And like so many of us, realized that we too, even if we weren't necessarily identifying as caregivers, had caregiving stories. And so when this opportunity came, I leapt at it. I mean, it's a chance in a lifetime to tell one of the most important stories in America today.
Well, you make a good point that I think a lot of folks don't see themselves as caregivers until you start talking to them, and that's what they are. LaTanya, you're nodding your head here. Is that what you found?
Absolutely. It is. The realization doesn't come right away. Oh, I'm just taking mom to the grocery store, or, mom kind of got a burn the other day, so I told her I'd cook for her. And then before you know it, you're doing more and more. And it kind of happens so gradually, I think, for some people, especially with elder care, that you don't realize it until you're really deep in, and someone says, you're a caregiver.
And you realize you're spending half your week
yes,
giving care.
Yes.
Well, Chris, did this film, change anything about the way you see caregiving?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, yeah, it's a bit like LaTanya was saying. For me, caregiving is everywhere and nowhere. It's in every family's life, and yet it's just disappeared from the public discourse. And so what we wanted to do was two things. Firstly, tell the story of how we got here. I think for many people who are caregivers, they find a system that is so complex to navigate. A mix of local rules, state rules, federal rules, depends on the person's condition, their relationship to you. I mean, even with all the time in the world and an advanced education, it's hard to navigate. But most people who are caregivers are fraught and frantic and hard up financially because of the pressures of the caregiving. And then they have to navigate this system. And so we wanted to tell the story of how we got there. And it's a story that starts with the Great Depression and the origins there that lead to the Social Security Act and the first nationwide care.
And Chris...
Sorry, go ahead.
Well... I was just going to say, in watching the documentary, that was one of the things that impressed me the most, was that you gave it that context. And you used the phrasing disappear from the public discourse. And I think many of us didn't know there was a public discourse going back to FDR and post-World War II. And it's very interesting how the documentary shows how this country has really struggled with this issue and tried to support caregivers and failed repeatedly.
I mean, absolutely. It's what we wanted to do was tell America's story, the story that we're all familiar with. Like you mentioned World War II, also Vietnam, what happened in the 80s and 90s, Reagan and Clinton. Tell that story that so many of us are familiar with, but tell it through the caregiving lens. And it really, and for us too, because no one's really told this story before. For us too, it was really eye-opening. For example, to see in World War II how that revolutionized childcare policies. I mean, we really acted as a nation to support the women who went into the workforce in World War II because so many men crossed the Atlantic and the Pacific to fight that war. And it was an upheaval in the labor force. We realized we needed childcare and we stepped up. It's a story that very few people know. Vietnam War, likewise, that was a revolutionary moment in terms of care for people with disabilities. Again, a story that not many people know, but has changed the landscape around us forever. So yes, many steps backward, but also a lot of signs of progress. And to me, part of the beauty of telling the story, of weaving it together, was that it shows us that we, as the people of America, can write the next story. It's in our power to write the next chapter in our caregiving story. And there's a lot in the film about what we can do. And that to me was one of the most exciting parts of the storytelling.
Can you talk a little bit about, are there any simple solutions? Because some of the stuff that you sort of think through seems like it would take an act of Congress literally. But are there simple solutions?
I'm really glad you brought that up, Blake, because I think for a lot of us, we see what's going on at the state level, we see what's going on in DC, and there's a kind of a sense of powerlessness, a sense of, just going to throw my hands up in the air and I don't know what to do. But in the case of caregiving, I would suggest to your listeners that there is actually a lot we can do. And I'm just going to tell you two stories that emerged from the film. The first is that many companies, most people here are going to be who are listening, are going to have some connection with a local employer, and all of those employers are going to have childcare policies. So if you get pregnant or are caring for a young child, it is perfectly fine to get support from, and many do get support from their employers to bring up that child if they have to go to doctor's appointments, if they take time off when they give birth, and so on. These are well-established policies.
And Chris, by that, are you just saying that it's understandable when someone says, I've got to go pick my kid up, they're sick at school?
It's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Now, say you have a parent with dementia, most people generally don't bring that up. Most companies generally don't have broad care policies. So I would encourage listeners to go to their employers and ask their HR departments, do you have a childcare policy? Or do you have a care policy, a general care policy? And the shift from a childcare policy to a care policy is a very, very simple shift. And you know what? It turns out all the studies show that it's great for the employers. It improves retention, increases morale. It's really a really great step to take for business reasons and because it's the right thing to do. The company, the production company, WETA, the PBS station in DC that initiated the caregiving policy, they started that project and they realized they hadn't done that. So
Wait, you're saying the public TV station in Washington D.C. realized we gotta practice what we're preaching here.
We have to step up.
Wow.
Exactly, we have to step up. And so they shifted halfway through the production. They shifted, and now if you're employed by WETA in Washington D.C., you get the benefit yourself, and if you have a colleague who has a child a care need, whatever that might be, you can donate your unused benefit to them
Wow.
as well. So it's a twofer.
Chris,
There's
let me
more
step
that we
in
can
here.
do as well.
If you're just
but it's
joining us,
great.
I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. We're talking about caregiving this hour, related to a new documentary that's all over PBS. Talking to Chris Durrance, who's the director and senior producer. Also have LaTanya Turner here in the studio with me. LaTanya Turner, what are you thinking here?
Well, I'm very glad Chris talked about what employers can do. Because we are very fortunate in this community to have a program through AgeWell of Middle Tennessee, the Elder Care Coach Program. And they partner with institutions, companies, and some churches to provide coaching and resources for caregivers. And there are an increasing number of companies that are starting to offer coaching, which is providing resources and information, as well as tightening up their family leave policies. And that there's a church that we, in our reporting, included, Lake Providence, which has as one of its ministries an elder care coach program to support caregivers in their congregation. So I bring that up to say it's not just in the workplace. It's in churches, even schools, colleges. There are college students, and we're going to talk some more about that later in the show, youth and young adults who are in caregiving roles.
Well, Chris, our time is short, but so we hear your simple solution on a care policy rather than just a child care policy of an employer. Hit us with one more.
Well, the other one you just brought up, schools and colleges. There are, most of your listeners won't realize this, there are upwards of 5 million kids who are active caregivers. That's kids under the age of 18 who are actively caregiving, be it for a younger sibling, a grandparent, a parent. That is millions of kids. And guess what? They're all in school. And guess what? Most schools do not have caregiving policies. They do not know who these kids are. And so this is a kid who is likely to show up late. This is a kid who might have to cut out early. This is a kid who may not be able to finish all their homework assignments on time. And so right now, these kids are getting punished, and they should be being supported. And so what I encourage listeners to do is ask get their schools to ask a simple question of their student body: are you a caregiver? And if they aren't, if they don't have a large number, then that's fine. You move on. But if they are, and Rhode Island is the first state that did that, they found that in some of their schools, 30 to 40% of their student bodies. Let that sink in. That means in a school of 1,000 kids, that is 300 to 400 kids
are taking care of an adult that is in their life.
Taking care.
Wow.
Or it may be a younger sibling. It may be that they have to walk a younger sibling to a bus stop and wait with them so they're not unattended, and then they get to school late. It may be as simple as that, but it may be a grandparent, it may be an adult. But it's millions of kids nationwide.
Well, thank you for...
ask.
Oh, excuse me.
Ask the schools. I was just going to say, get parents, ask your schools if to ask that question of the student body. And if it's as bad as Rhode Island, in some schools in Rhode Island, then we'll start to do something about it. Again, doesn't need DC. It's something we can do in our communities.
Well, Chris Durrance, thank you for kind of expanding our minds for how we think of caregiving, because that's what we're going to get at for the rest of the hour. Chris Durrance, who directed the new caregiving documentary with actor Bradley Cooper, and LaTanya Turner here to my side, my colleague, editor and afternoon host, also producer of many of our special projects on aging. Thanks for being with us. When we come back, we're going to be joined by 3 caregivers with very different stories, none caring for an aging parent, and their experiences revealed the gaps that exist and the support that's still needed. Later this hour, we'll also be taking your calls as we bring in some experts on resources that are available in Middle Tennessee, so stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners. In Curry Ingram Academy, a junior kindergarten through 12 school, working to help students with learning differences reach their full potential through an individualized, structured multisensory approach. Learn more at curryingram.org. And Sightland Sotheby's International Realty Global Advisors Melanie Baker, Shauna Brooks, Nathan Matwijak, and Stephanie Kleiner, representing distinctive properties across Middle Tennessee. Listings available at Sightland.com. And Parnassus Books presenting an event with Shannon Hale, author of Dream On, Friday, August 29th at 6:30 p.m. Registration required. Event calendar and details at parnassusbooks.net.
I'm Rob Schmitz. After sending in the National Guard to Washington, D.C., President Trump has already set his sights on a new target.
Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent, and we'll straighten that one out probably next. That'll be our next one after this.
We hear reaction from Chicago next time on Here and Now.
This afternoon at 1 on 90.3 WPLN News.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. It's a special hour on caregiving, something we will all do or need. And there's a bit of a crisis at the moment. If you're not feeling it, just wait. You'll see. We all will. Caregiving for a loved one is a beautiful experience. It can also be backbreaking or soul-crushing at times, and often the suffering happens in silence. We're familiar with the generational expectations of tending to an aging parent. That's hard enough. But for other kinds of caregiving, for kids or adults with special needs, or for kids being raised by grandparents, help can be hard to find. In Tennessee, for example, services for medically complex children exist until a child graduates from high school, but after that, parents may be largely on their own. Joining us are Sandy Ewing of Nashville, whose son is now 22, I believe, and still needs care every day. Amy Luchterhand of Nashville, who has a 4-year-old daughter with special needs. And Tina Lemon of Hendersonville, who's now raising her grandchildren. Thank you all for being here and being willing to share your own caregiving journey. And just a reminder, we are streaming on YouTube. If you want to watch this conversation instead of just listen, it's also a great way to offer a comment that we can include in the conversation when we're also taking phone calls later this hour. And that's easy to find at the Nashville Public Radio YouTube page, youtube.com/@WPLN. So, Sandy, you've described how carefully structured your mornings are. I wonder if you could sort of walk us through a typical day for you and Richard.
Sure. It sort of depends on the time of the year.
Really?
So the school year is a lot more structured, as you can imagine. We wake up at 5:40 every morning. Richard is sort of programmed, I guess, to wake up at that time. So usually he wakes us up. We don't really need an alarm, although we put it on anyway. My husband helps him wash up, get dressed, brush his teeth, etc. Well, I go downstairs, make his breakfast, get everything ready with his medications, which are legion.
Really?
And then he comes downstairs, inhales his breakfast because he's a 22-year-old, 6'4" young man, and takes his meds, puts on his backpack, and runs to the bus.
Do you feel like you are? I mean, I assume at 22 he's still doing school.
Mm-hmm. For one more year.
One more year. Do you feel like you're still caring for a child, or have you crossed over into feeling like this is an adult I'm in the care of at this point?
Well, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance, honestly, because we call him a big, hairy man-child. He's a lovely, lovely guy, but he's 22, and he is a man, technically. But mentally, I would say that he might be more at like an 8 or 9-year-old level. So it's both. I have to be aware of the aspects in which I have to acknowledge, yes, this is a grown person. When we help him with personal care, like showering and dressing, we have to be respectful of his space and try and give him chances to do things for himself.
Yeah.
But then in other areas, we have to hover because we're responsible for his care. We're now his guardians. We have him under conservatorship, which is a whole process too.
We'll try to stay out of that one today. Topic for another day. But well, Sandy, thank you for sharing this. Amy, you've got a 4-year-old who you're in the care of every day, as most 4-year-olds need care. At least mine has. But what does a morning look like for you all?
Yes. So Francis
She is an early riser, so we also do not have to set an alarm, though we do. But yeah, she starts her day at 5 a.m.
5?
Yes. Yeah, nice, bright and early, which gives us lots of time to read and cuddle. But she has started school. She has an IEP, and she's really thriving. She's very socially motivated.
Is she in a class with everybody else?
It's called a blended class. So it's half typically developing kids and then half kids with special needs and medical complexities. So we just love that for her. It's been really an amazing experience. Hard to get her into that. Systems in Tennessee are hard for kids with special needs or medical complexities.
What was harder than you might expect, or harder it had to be?
Really kind of like in the medical world, like anytime we're in the children's hospital, there's this great amount of respect. Every doctor, every nurse is like, you are the world expert in Frances. You know what's right for her. And they we're so supported there. I feel like going through the IEP process, it was these experts that sat with her for 15 minutes and then said, this is what she needs and this is how she's going to thrive.
And this is with Metro Schools.
Yes,
An IEP, individualized education plan.
Yeah.
So this is what any student who has some sort of special need would have, ranging from ADD to something else, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Any kind of medical complexity, anything that puts you out of the norm. Right. But we really had to advocate hard, and we did get an advocate to come alongside of us and help push the issue. It was a lot of meetings to say, this is what she needs. And, we worked hard and we advocated hard and got her what she needed.
Why does she need an aide or something who's with her?
She just needed to be in a school with a lot of supportive nursing, which we did not get her in at first. She needed to be in a school that was close to either our home or the children's hospital.
Wow. And why is that? What does she need that could be so urgent?
She has a very rare brain condition. And there's really, because it is so rare, there's no roadmap. And she could have pretty bad seizures or strokes with no warning signs. Wow. And for something like that, it's immediate intervention that is needed. So experts that can pick up like the tiniest little sign, that generally her signs are really small. And she just will either start to vomit or she's not talking so much. And then it ends up being, like a huge problem in the brain that needs immediate attention. So just being with experts who can pick up small things and being close to getting that care that she needs.
Well, thank you, Amy. This comment from Allison watching on the YouTube stream at the Nashville Public Radio YouTube page. I appreciate this episode so much. I have a 2-year-old son with a rare genetic condition, which has caused him to be medically complex. We're about to start the IEP process, and I'm anxious about it. So listening closely there to you, Amy. Tina, let's talk a bit for you. Quite a bit different. You and your husband expected to kind of be enjoying grandparenthood at the moment in a traditional sense, but now you're raising 2 young grandchildren full time. What's that transition been like?
Oh, well, it's very interesting. I'm 56. My husband is 59, and we were really enjoying our time here in Nashville, exploring, doing all the things that you do.
Because you relocated from Ohio, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we were doing all of that, and then last July, our youngest daughter had some mental illness and addiction issues, and we stepped in. And so it's different. Our Saturdays look much different. They start with swimming and then go to gymnastics and special lunch that they have to have after that, and getting up and putting them on the bus every day. And homework is a little challenging to do again after so many years. Our children are adults, so trying to do all of that again has been a little challenging.
Yeah. How do the kids feel? I mean, are they entirely aware that their situation is not the norm?
They are.
6 and 8, correct?
Yes. In our situation, our daughter, the end of March, had signed over custody. And then 6 days later, she died by suicide. So they are aware that they're with us and we're the grandparents. And we go to other functions where other grandparents have custody of their children, so they know that they're not alone. One thing that we've done to be very intentional, because we didn't want to take away the fact that they lost their grandparents in this, and now we're just parents. So we do something I'm called Graham, and he's called Pops. And so we do Graham and Pops days. And we do that once a month where they can choose any store, any place to go eat, anything they want to buy. And then we'll do the opposite month for Pops. But they've become very smart now. And so they'll say things like, can we have ice cream for dinner? Can it be a Graham move or a Pops move? And sometimes we do that because we want them to understand that we're grandparents too. And we're not just going to be their parents.
Wow, that's so much complexity in what you're describing here. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Even though it means you have these beautiful children who you care for every day. If you're just joining us, I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. We're talking to 3 caregivers, parents, grandparents. We also want to hear about your unique experience. What unmet needs have you seen as caregiving or as the recipient of caregiving? We're taking your calls starting right now. 615-760-2000 is the number to join us on air, and we welcome you to do that. You can also comment on the video stream at youtube.com/@WPLN. Someone with the handle Infinite Violence says, I want to say thanks to my sister and stepfather for caring for my mom in the last years of her life, my stepmother and siblings for helping care for our father, and my friends for caring for our friend with cerebral palsy. Thank you for that comment there on the YouTube stream. And yes, I think all of us, think of ourselves as caregivers. I wonder to this group in here who directly are caregiving, some of you are sort of just, you're parenting is what it sounds like. But when did you take on the mindset of like, I'm a caregiver. This is not normal parenting. Amy?
The older Francis gets, the more it becomes kind of clear, like we are caregivers. We don't, we do play dates with other friends and they all let the kids go out. And my husband and I are like, we're with Francis all the time. We are ready to catch her. We're ready to help her climb something or
you're not going to sit over and chat while the kids
correct,
play.
Where they go right off and play. One of us is with her 24 hours a day.
Wow. Sandy, I wonder for you when you realized that this was more than parenting.
When Richard was almost 7 months old, he had his first bout of seizures called infantile spasms, and those shut down all speech. Every day that passed by, we knew he was getting more and more damage to his brain. And we had to put him on steroid therapy, mostly because the drug that is now sort of the standard was not approved by the FDA at that point. So that drug is vigabatrin, but Richard went on ACTH, and we immediately had to sequester him because it tears down your immune system. Oh. So I would say that was really the moment. We already knew his diagnosis, which not everyone is lucky to have. Not everyone has a diagnosis, which can be a whole different level of difficulty. But yeah, like having to keep him away from people, having to try and keep him engaged in the world in ways that would be safe for him and not get him sick. Yeah, that was the moment.
What does the future hold? And it almost sounds like a scary question as it comes out of my mouth. Because it seems like that's probably a lot of the burden is that you can't say, and now go on, leave the nest.
True.
So what happens?
We're working on that. Like every day we're trying to think of ways that we can enrich his world and set the stage for the next chapter in his life. For now, we haven't come up with an adequate answer. I'll be honest, because Richard is not one of the lucky ones who will necessarily be able to hold down a job. He has serious behavioral neuropsychiatric components to his disease, which is tuberous sclerosis. And we're painfully aware that in a year, like many families in our position, basically he'll fall off a cliff in terms of programming. So it's going to be...
Because school stops next year.
School stops in May, and then we will have to figure out how to fill his time with things that are meaningful and engaging and interesting so that he can actually enjoy his life.
Is there a program? You never know who's going to fit into what program when I've been covering things over the years in the state legislature. But there are programs for adults to some degree, although I hear people complain that not like some states might have.
There are some great programs. I've explored many of them. Lots of them aren't set up for people with behavioral components to their set of challenges. Like medical, sure, or just, certain disease groups where they don't have as many behavioral challenges as my son does. So it's sort of an open question whether the ones we find will be able to handle him.
Thank you for folks who are ringing us to chime in on the conversation. The number to do that, 615-760-2000. If you're hanging on the line, we're going to get to you in a couple of minutes when we bring our experts into the studio, so it'll be about 4 minutes. But hang on the line. Don't go anywhere. Tina, you're obviously in this position going back to parenting. When you look at the future, is that more daunting than it was when you were, in the first time around?
So we actually try not to look into the future. Yeah. We really just try to day by day, week by week, and make sure the kids have everything they need. We're actually enrolled in a program called the Relative Caregiver Program with Family and Children's Service that helps caregivers, supports us, invites us to different things like brunches, support groups, enrichments.
So they can be with other kids who also have parents who are in a different stage of life.
Correct, yes. And I actually work there as well.
Right.
And I had worked there a year before this came about. It's a wonderful program. So we just try to connect with people that are in situations like ours and not look too far ahead. Because if I look too far ahead, it seems a little overwhelming.
Well, then let's not do that. We'll stay in the moment today. Amy, maybe you can wrap us up here with this. Isolation is something that I think whenever people talk about caregiving, even if it's just caring for an aging parent, they feel that isolation for whatever reason. And I wonder how have you found any secret to break out of that when you clearly have a very different experience than the other parents who are in your generation?
Yes. So isolation is very real, and it's very lonely a lot of days. But asking for help and looking for help, you'll have Tennessee Caregiver Coalition in here in a few minutes. Right. If you search and if you look and ask for help and accept help, you do start to find other people that look like you or, that are doing things differently than the norm.
Did you have to work, though, to find it? I mean, it seems like you could easily get left out.
Yes, you could easily get left out. You do have to work to find it. You do have to, and it's a Google search. We have the world at our fingertips. But yes, I did have to actively look for it and find it and then reach out and try to make the meetings and events. And it's been so worth it. So I would say to anybody who is new to caregiving or feeling lonely, look for help and reach out and find the resources because it is worth it.
Well, just the tip of the iceberg on your old stories here, but thank you for sharing your experience today. We need to take a break. When we come back, we've got people who've dedicated their professional careers to the art of caregiving, and they're taking your questions. What kind of help are you looking for? How could your experience maybe help policymakers decide how the government could better support caregivers? Join us on air at 615-760-2000 or leave a comment, as some people have been doing on the video stream at youtube.com/@WPLN. We'll be right back. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners. And Gay Farmers Market, offering local produce, art, and community events in East Nashville, highlighting LGBTQIA+ vendors and partners. Every other Sunday through the end of October. Event dates at musiccityprep.org/GFM. And Electronic Express, offering a wide selection of the latest 8K and 4K TVs from brands like Sony, LG, and Samsung. Available in stores and at electronicexpress.com. And Xander Insurance, an independent agency working for their clients by helping them find options for their personal and business insurance needs for nearly 100 years in Middle Tennessee. More at xander.com.
I'm Holly Kernan, president of Nashville Public Radio, here to say a hearty thank you to all of you who support our work. Your membership allows us to do everything we do in this community, from reporting the local news, to discovering new music and sharing it with you, to community events that help neighbors know each other. We are here because you choose to donate to Nashville Public Radio. We are grateful for you.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. As part of the Well-Beings Project and the PBS caregiving documentary that has us talking today, there's this opportunity to share your story. We've got a link to submit a video about your experience on the show post for today. That's something you might do later. Right now, we invite you to call and join us on the air to talk about your experience caregiving or what you'd hope to see for support for caregivers. 615-760-2000. You can also comment on the video stream at youtube.com/@WPLN. All right, as caregivers, what do you really need? As someone who's in need of caregiving, what's helped you? We want to hear from you. So that number is 615-760-2000. Joining us, our panel of experts, Dr. Phelan Lewis, researcher for the National Alliance for Caregiving, also Assistant Dean of Student Affairs for Vanderbilt's Nursing School. Welcome to This is Nashville.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Dr. Megan Schwalm, President and CEO of the Tennessee Caregiver Coalition. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So we may just go straight to the phones because people have been hanging on for a moment. And if you want to join them at 615-760-2000. But Susan, you're in Murfreesboro. You're on This is Nashville. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Blake. I appreciate you taking my call.
Well, what's your experience?
My experience is that when my dad was 85 years old, I was living in Oregon, and one night I got a call. He was in Ohio from the VA hospital, and he'd had a stroke. So I had to, it was Christmas time. I flew home, and by the time I got home, he was still in the hospital, but he was very argumentative. He swore he never had a stroke. There was nothing wrong. They brought him there. He didn't want that. It was the first time I'd actually seen the dementia increase to a point that was almost unbearable. So I packed up and went back home to Ohio to take care of him, and I took care of him for the next 5 years, and it was pretty much a nightmare.
Wow.
But it was so wonderful to have the VA, because the VA hospital had wonderful doctors in Ohio. They were very helpful, and I lived in a community where they actually had people that come to the house and give us, they would test him, and then they'd give us all kinds of ideas of things to do for him, but he was sort of beyond that.
Yeah, Susan, thank you for sharing this experience, and we're going to discuss it right here. I appreciate you sharing this because, Megan, I'm wondering with the Tennessee Caregiver Coalition, how much of your all's work is folks dealing with people who have dementia or Alzheimer's and just they're going to need somebody with them most 24 hours?
Yeah, about 50% of the families that we serve are caring for a relative with Alzheimer's or dementia who need round-the-clock 24-hour care. And so we provide them with services like respite reimbursement vouchers to pay for respite so they can get a break from caregiving. We also have a senior volunteer program where we take able-bodied seniors and they go and provide companionship to the person with Alzheimer's while at the same time providing a break for the caregiver.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, Phelan, is this something that, is this what dominates any conversation about caregiving, like how to handle aging folks with dementia?
Yeah, absolutely. You are speaking my life. I'm actually taking care of my mother who had a stroke in the pandemic and also my grandfather who has dementia and Alzheimer's. So the agitation, the paranoia, the personality changes, all of that, I completely am familiar with, and it completely changes your world. I can really only echo what Dr. Megan suggested. Like, you want to make sure as a caregiver that you have the time and the space available so that you can vent. You can have turn to someone who's walked through the road before you, turn to someone such as the support groups offered by the Tennessee Caregiver Coalition so that you can have some time for yourself and you do have other people you can lean on who understand exactly what you're going through.
Phelan, I wonder, though, is respite practical? Like, maybe this question is for you as a caregiver. In other words, I'm thinking of my own mother who... To get somebody up to speed on how this is going to work, what I'm going to really need to be able to take this day off, it's going to be a real undertaking, and you say, forget about it, I'll just suffer over here, you know?
Respite may not seem practical at the first impression, but it's incredibly necessary. You cannot pour from an empty cup, as cliched as that is. And with the Tennessee Caregiver Coalition, their team can walk you through how to make respite be possible for you and your family in your unique situation. I have been a benefit of the respite vouchers, and you need that time to take a break, recharge, and restore yourself so that you can be there for your loved one.
Let's take another phone call. Roy, you're on This Is Nashville.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing all right. What's your story?
Well, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I was actually at the caregiving event just last week.
Oh, really? With LaTanya doing the panel?
Yeah, it was great. It was a fascinating event. Really enjoyed it. Everybody there was great. All the speakers. I ended up talking to a few of them, and just brilliant people, and it was really educational. But I'm short for time. But my story is that I was a caregiver for 11 years by myself, taking care of my mom and my dad partially before he passed away. And my entire 30s, that's what I did into my 40s. And it was just brutal.
Were you working at the time also? I mean, you were holding down a full-time job as well?
No, I had a career working in film and TV, and then I had to quit that career. After my dad died in 2009, I pretty much put that on hold. Then I just put my life on hold just to take care of, my mom the entire time, because she just had everything going. Everything you can imagine happened to someone, that happened to her. And so every year it just kept getting worse and worse and worse until she passed away in 2017.
Oh, my.
But it was, my parents were amazing. And it's kind of weird you say, would you do it all over again? It's like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, would I? Because it was so brutal, but I would, just because, they're just such amazing people.
Of course.
And parents.
Well, Roy, this is really nice. Let us chew on that for just a second. I wonder, Megan, what does that bring up for you?
I think Roy's story is so common. We hear so many caregivers who have to leave their jobs to care for their loved ones. Part of that is because we have a tremendous workforce shortage right now of people who provide home health care services. So it is very challenging to get someone else to come in and provide those services. And so we see a lot of caregivers having to leave their jobs and provide full-time care for loved ones. And, then that leads to the conversation of all of the cuts going on right now federally and what that means with, work requirements for SNAP and Medicaid and what that will mean for caregivers who have to stay home and provide care for their loved ones.
Yeah, and Roy, if you're still on the line, is my understanding that you have a podcast that maybe is about caregiving, or maybe it's something else?
Yes, I'm glad to talk about that. There's a podcast right now that's we launched a few weeks ago, and it's called The Gray Take, Grey, and it is about aging parents and caregiving. And
gray, as in hair.
And MB, and we talk about our stories, and we interview a lot of people, and so it's providing resources, and we want to build a community, just like what you're doing here, and just like what we did last week at the event, to help people that are out there, people that can connect us and relate to what we went through, and just provide, a helping hand in some sort of way. So it's really nice to give back and try to help people like, hey, this is what I did wrong, and I want to help you to make sure you don't make my mistakes.
Well, you've certainly shown that you've had the experience, Roy, and the battle scars to prove it. I really appreciate you chiming in here. So thank you, Roy.
Yeah.
We'll go to another call. If you'd like to join us on air, the number is 615-760-2000. People are also commenting on the YouTube stream, which is great. Join them there if you want to drop a comment. We'll share it here on the air. That's at youtube.com/@WPLN. Elizabeth, you've been on the line waiting patiently. Thank you. What's your story?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and we have a 50-year-old son who has schizoaffective disorder ever since he was in his early 20s. And I couldn't leave my job, but he had multiple hospitalizations. But we found instead a mental health co-op, the outpatient, and a group home where he could be. But the shout out is to your show for having this about caregiving. Even though someone's not in your home, it still is being watchful in caregiving. And we go to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or the NAMI Davidson County groups for parents who have loved ones with mental illness. And that's a very special group to be in.
Phelan, what's that experience like for folks who, are caregivers, even though it's not under their roof?
Yeah. So we always say you are a caregiver whether or not you live with that person that you're taking care of, or whether you are caring at a distance. The contributions that you make to your family are invaluable, and the contributions that you make to our society are worth billions of dollars in care. So know that if you are caring at a distance, we recognize that you may experience higher rates of isolation, and you need more support yourself because of the different nuances to being away from the person that you care for. So definitely, I'm sending all strength and power to you.
I hope you feel it. Elizabeth, thank you for chiming in here. Let's work in one more phone call from Smithville. Bob, you're on This Is Nashville.
Hey, sorry, it just turned out my navigation. I'm pulling over right now.
Well, thank you for doing that. We want you to be safe. But tell us what you've got going on.
My brother was autistic. We didn't know it at the time, and there was really not a place for him to sit in. It was right on the borderline of special ed. And my parents created a school out of our church, and he went from there to various other places and finally graduated from Hillsborough High School, I guess, in the special ed program they had. I'm not real familiar with that, but the big challenge, and he lived at home up until that time, was after he graduated from high school, and you'll hear that from other people that have had children like that, because that's, when the support ends. And so he went to live with my uncle, who was single, and my uncle wasn't very strict about what, he could come and go and do what he wanted to, and he worked some menial jobs, but the problem was that he was a young man, and young men have hormones. But that basically led to him going to strip clubs, which was his downfall, and he contracted AIDS and died in 94 at the age of 33.
Well, Bob, you bring up such a tragic story there, but it raises a good point about after school age, and I wonder, Megan, if you can close us out just with what folks can do after the support kind of falls away.
Yeah, it's such a challenge. After high school is done, there is a huge cliff when you're caring for kids with disabilities. I myself have a 15-year-old with autism and a variety of other diagnoses, and really I'm starting to think about what happens in 4 years. And there aren't a lot of good options out there. There's definitely not a lot of options. We have been talking about possibly having to leave Tennessee just because, there's a huge lack of services here in particular. So yeah, there's a cliff there, and it's challenging.
Even for those in the know, it is a very real thing sitting out there, and as we've learned today. Thank you so much for folks' engagement on the YouTube stream, here on the air, to Phelan Lewis of Vanderbilt's Nursing School and with the National Science for Caregiving, doing research there. Dr. Megan Schwalm as well from the Tennessee Caregiver Coalition. Dr. Lewis, Dr. Schwalm, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, today's episode was produced by LaTanya Turner and Mary Mancini, directed by Tasha A.F. Limley, doing double duty, making us look good on the YouTube stream. On the phones, Josh Deepen. Y'all are making it work hard out there today as well. Board operator is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. Special thanks to the Well-Beings Project. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get podcasts. Video stream is archived there on YouTube. And if you're looking for an easy way to listen when you miss a show, just ask a smart speaker to play the latest episode. Conversation does not have to end right here. You can comment, tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and X. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.
I think people believe that in small towns, people will just accept chump change or crumbs.
If you want to end homelessness, this is not the way to do it.
If things don't change and we don't stand up and say, like, we're not okay with this isn't the country that we want to be, I'm worried that it'll just continue to progress in that way and get worse.
Here in Nashville, people care about their work, their community, their state. I'm Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams. I cover what people care about.
This is 90.3 WPLN,
Nashville Public Radio,
and 91.7 WHRS Cookeville.
Nashville's home for Morning Edition and NPR News.
WPLN.org is where you can find more from WPLN News, including the Nash Villager, your human-powered newsletter and podcast, exploring Nashville news and history. Subscribe to both at WPLN.org.